One of the most absolutely frustrating and annoying things is seeing other people and knowing that there's people out in the world who it seems like nothing bothers them. But then knowing that you're the type of person that gets very hurt by things and very bothered by things, and the thought that there's something wrong with you. I, 10 out of 10, am that second person. I'm somebody who, for the majority of my life, I was a very, very sensitive person. I got really negatively impacted by almost everything. And this really highlighted itself in 2023 when I had just gotten out of a 6-month relationship that, in all honesty, really wasn't good. And I know there was no future there. But I was laying in bed for 3 days after that breakup, basically catatonic. I didn't eat, I wasn't sleeping, I was just laying in bed. And my mind was racing and racing and racing. And I sincerely thought, I'm either going to die or I'm going to feel like this forever. And it was a really, really dark time in my life because those feelings were so pervasive. Those feelings were so scary. And it was brutal seeing that there are other people in this world who have gone through relationships and didn't get so badly impacted the way that I did, to where they couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. When I've never been a person who does something like that and who had done something like that in the past. So why does that happen? Why is it that there are some people who life happens to them in very similar ways to other people, but yet it doesn't impact them the same? They're not negatively impacted the same way. They're not struggling in the same ways that maybe you or I would, and for sure as hell differently than the way that I would and that I did in the past. One of the biggest components, and this is what we're going to be talking about today in this video. It comes down to the way that we think. In psychology, there is something called a cognitive distortion. And a cognitive distortion, it's basically a mental pattern, or it's a mental filter. So it's a habit or a tendency of thinking in specific patterns or in certain ways about your life. Every single one of us have these. And there was actually this really incredible book written about, I think there was 100 different cognitive distortions that this person had studied and written about. The book is called The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli, Rolfdobelli. I think I spelled that right. And the book talks about these 100, and there's definitely more, but these 100 cognitive distortions, or these mental filters, and the way that they impact our life. Now, cognitive distortions, it seems like a bad term. It's like, oh, we're distorted. It's actually a really cool thing that our brain does, because our brain is trying to synthesize information, basically make things make sense quicker and make things make sense easier. And the way that it does that is by creating these filters or these lenses. So anything that might look like a cylinder like this, my brain has categorized this as can. Anything that looks like this, my brain has categorized, oh, this is a cup. This does this function. You can put liquids in it and drink liquids from it. So our brain is basically working to make things as efficient as possible. And it's really cool until it's not, until you're thinking in these really destructive patterns and in these really destructive ways that are causing absolute freaking chaos in your life, which is why so many of us feel so trapped in our life. And it's why we feel as though Our thoughts are destroying us and ruining us because we are thinking in these patterns and we are seeing the world through these very specific lenses in these very specific ways that aren't actually helping us. They're actually making our lives a lot worse. And we don't even know what's happening. So it's like, how the hell am I supposed to get out of this? So, what I want to dive into today, like I said, there's hundreds of them. If you study psychology, if you study sales, if you study evolutionary psychology, biology, whatever, it shows up in every arena of our life, and there's hundreds of them. But what I want to talk about today are three of the biggest ones that I've faced and what I was doing in that situation to where I was laying in bed and I literally couldn't get up and I started feeling insanely depressed and even suicidal. What so many other people experience, and then how do you get out of it? How do you make sure that these mental traps and these filters aren't having the detrimental impact that they are having? Because these mental filters, they shape the entire way we see our life. We make meaning of the world through these lenses, through these filters, through these ways of thinking. Our thoughts control everything. Our thoughts control everything. And when you don't have control over your thoughts, your life is going to feel out of control and your behaviors are going to follow suit. If you know anything about CBT or if you've ever heard of it, CBT thinks of our human experience as this triad or this triangle. There's our thoughts, which is at the top, our emotions, and then our behaviors. So our thoughts impact our emotions, which then impact our behavior, and vice versa. So our thoughts impact our emotions, and that impacts our thoughts. Our thoughts make us behave in certain ways. We behave in certain ways, and that produces thoughts, and then the emotions come in, and it's a whole thing. But that's the way that our mind works. It takes in information, it assigns it a meaning, we think about it, we have a feeling about it, and then we react. So, what if you could have more control over that? What if you could feel a sense of certainty over how you made sense of the world, understanding why am I making sense of the world in the way that I am, and choosing a better response? That's what I really struggled to do. When I was in that moment, it felt so dark. I was assigning all of these meanings to this situation. I was assuming these really terrible and heartbreaking things. And it put me in this trap of feeling like I had no way out. And there was three massive cognitive distortions that I was experiencing in that. Number one is and we've probably all heard this. You have probably heard this so many times, this specific one. Number one was a cognitive distortion called catastrophizing or jumping to conclusions. They're two separate ones, but they basically go hand in hand because we typically don't do one without the other. Catastrophizing is assuming an outcome of a situation. So you're jumping to a conclusion about the outcome of a situation, and then you are making it as if it is the worst possible thing that could happen. So, for example, let's assume that you have to go to your relative's house later and you know that you and this relative do not get along. You butt heads every time you see each other. Your brain might do something with the cognitive distortion to jump to a conclusion and say, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. They're going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and it's going to blow up, and then my entire day is going to be ruined, and then I'm going to be pissed off tomorrow. Your brain is jumping to a potential future and making it the worst possible outcome. So when I was in that really dark time, what I was doing was thinking, I am going to be alone forever. And this happens to me all the time. So, catastrophizing, worst possible case scenario. Nobody loves me. Nobody is ever going to want to be with me. All of my friends and all of my family are going to see how much of a loser I am because this relationship issue happened again. In my mind, I was telling myself the absolute worst case scenarios and the absolute worst outcomes of what was likely to come. And because of that, I basically scared the shit out of myself and was making my emotions feel worse and worse and worse, convincing myself of this really destructive narrative where there's basically no path forward. And that's the issue with catastrophizing. We're only looking at one possible outcome of a situation and the worst possible outcome situation. So basically, there's no way for your mind to get out of it. So, what you can do instead, if you are catastrophizing, if this is a mental filter that you find yourself using, the best tool for you to use is something called Socratic questioning. So basically, just ask yourself questions. Okay, I am noticing that I am jumping to this really horrible outcome. I'm scared of this really terrible outcome happening. What I'm predicting and the story that I'm telling myself is that I'm going to be alone forever, that I'm going to feel this way forever. That's the story I'm telling myself. So what you want to do is you want to jump in and ask yourself another question. It's like, okay, I notice I'm feeling this way. I notice that this is the story that I am telling me. What else could be true? That is one of the most powerful questions you can ever learn to ask yourself. What else could be true? What else could be true? What else might this mean? What else might be happening here? It gives your mind and your brain the opportunity to see that there's potential other outcomes. There's potential other solutions, which gets you out of that fear-based thinking of, oh my God, this terrible thing, and I don't know what to do, and this is the end of the world. And it gets you out of your own mental loop and out of your own thought pattern, which then allows you to see other perspectives. So, number one, catastrophizing. Number two, and then the solution or the workaround to that is asking yourself the question, what else could be happening here? What else could be true? And that's what I did. So, what I did was I actually asked myself that and I said, well, what else could be true? This wasn't a good relationship, anyways. It was misaligned. We weren't right for each other. They clearly weren't actually interested in me. They were trying to meet some need of theirs, and I was trying to meet some need of mine. And we didn't actually have anything in common. What else could this mean? This might bring me to something that actually is right for me. Because now I'm not in this really destructive relationship anymore that's not actually good for either of us. And I can actually go out there and find someone who is better for me or find new ways to meet my needs. So, in doing that, I allowed myself to see that the worst case scenario, yes, it might feel really real, but that doesn't mean that it is. This is where number two starts to come in: emotional reasoning. So, in that situation, I was engaging in something called emotional reasoning, which is we take how we feel about a situation and assume that because we feel it, that must be the truth. So in that situation, I was telling myself, I feel like I'm going to be alone forever. I feel like this is going to last for the rest of my life. I am using my emotions and how I feel about a situation to predict an outcome to where there is no tangible evidence. We do this shit all the time. All the time. I don't feel like going. Why? I don't know. I just don't feel like it. That's not a reason. Or I feel like eating this thing in front of me. Even though I know I probably shouldn't, but I feel like doing it. Therefore, because I feel like it, I'm just going to do it. Or this doesn't feel like it's going well, even though the data shows that it is. We do this all the time. It doesn't feel right. I trust my gut. I feel this. I feel that. Our emotions are super important. I'm a therapist. I literally teach people how to feel their emotions better and to understand them. But the thing is, our emotions aren't always right. Now, we don't want to discredit our emotions, but we want to understand the function that our emotions serve. Our emotions are signals that something isn't right, but it doesn't mean that the reason we're giving the emotion is valid. If I'm tired and I feel like the reason I'm tired is because I didn't eat my favorite cookies yesterday, like that doesn't make it true. I'm probably tired because I didn't sleep well because I didn't prioritize going to sleep at the right time. When we rely on our feelings to guide our behavior, we're basically going to be stuck in this pattern of chasing the next feeling, chasing the next feeling, chasing the next feeling, or reacting to what we feel, even though it's guiding us in the wrong direction. I felt like no one was ever going to love me. I felt like this feeling was going to last forever. I felt like I was going to be judged. And because I felt it, there was a narrative that this must be true. I feel this way. My feelings must be accurate and they must be true. But they weren't. I had no actual external evidence in my life to show that this is something that's going to happen. And that's the key when it comes to emotional reasoning. Number one, you acknowledge the feeling. Okay, what is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling hopeless. I'm feeling helpless. I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling despair. But then you look at, do I actually have any evidence to support that this is real? Yes, I feel it and I understand it. And I understand that what it's telling me is that I feel lonely and that I need connection. Okay. But is the feeling actually true that nobody is ever going to want me? Nobody's ever going to love me? Nobody's ever going to want to be with me? No. There's no evidence to validate that. Just because it feels real doesn't make it true. And this ties into the last thing, and to this one is really important because more of us do this than we think. Hands down, one of the biggest traps in our thinking that we engage in that keep us stuck in these really destructive patterns. And I was running this cycle like a freaking champ. I could win an Olympic gold medal in this. Disqualifying the positives. In that situation, like I said, I did three things. Number one, I catastrophized. I blew up the situation to something way bigger than it actually was, and I assumed the absolute worst case scenario. Number two, I assumed my feelings about that were accurate. This feels true, therefore it must be true, therefore I must do something about it. Why does this feel true? And why am I jumping to the worst case scenario? Because I refuse to look at the positives in my life that would validate how inaccurate these other two things were. We do this shit all the time. How many times have you ever been complimented and you dismissed it? How many times have you ever done something good and you completely negated it or you justified why you were able to do it? We suck at crediting ourselves. We think we're all so narcissistic and egotistical. We're not. The majority of us are deeply insecure and we have a really hard time accepting credit. That's why we need validation so much. We have a really hard time giving ourselves credit for the things that we do because we don't want to be big headed and we don't want to seem narcissistic, but we also feel so bad about ourselves that it doesn't make sense to say the good things that we're doing because I should have did it anyways. If I had a freaking dollar for the amount of times that I tried giving my client credit for something that they did, and they were like, well, I shouldn't praise myself because I should have done that anyways, I swear to God, I'd be a millionaire. We have such a hard time giving ourselves credit and validating the positives, but we are so good at disqualifying all of the good that we do. Oh, yeah, maybe my hair looks good, but I spent like 3 hours on it this morning. Or yeah, I got a 95, but like I got that one question wrong. Or yeah, I get approached by people all the time and everyone tells me I'm beautiful and everyone tells me this, but it doesn't matter because this one person left me and therefore all of the good things don't matter. We funnel negativity into our mind all day, every day, and we dismiss anything that could make us feel better, anything that might be data in the right direction because it keeps us safe. And that's the kind of screwed up thing about all of this. Our brain does this to keep us safe because it's easier to assume the worst case scenario and to jump to the worst possible outcome and to trust your scary feelings than it is to have hope, than it is to think more optimistically, than it is to assume things are going to work out. Because what if they don't? That's the cycle our brain is running. Yeah, but what if it doesn't? It's optimizing to keep us safe, not happy. But that's why so many of us feel so trapped in our life because we don't learn how to get out of that. These cycles are ruining our lives, and that's exactly what happened to me. And the only way that I finally got out of that really dark situation is by doing these things that I had talked about in this video, which is understanding these 3 cognitive distortions and doing the things to actually start getting out of them. When it comes to catastrophizing, ask yourself that question: what else could this mean? Emotional reasoning. Understand the emotion, understand where it's coming from, and then look for what other evidence you have. And then disqualifying the positive. Give yourself goddamn credit for the things that you do. Learn to sit in the discomfort of accepting praise. Learn to sit in the discomfort of acknowledging that you did something well. Because if you can do that, you'll have more of that evidence to go back to when you're having a really hard time. It allows you, to the title of that book, to think more clearly. That's what I did for so many of my clients. And that's exactly what I did for myself to get myself out of a really dark time and to actually feel hopeful about a future, to actually feel like good things can happen to me. I can be confident in who I am. I can feel really good about my life. And yes, I'm still going to worry and there's still going to be struggles, but I'll handle them better because I'm not letting these thinking patterns distort me into really destructive thoughts and emotions and behaviors that are going to essentially ruin my life. I know this probably felt like a lot. That's okay. Drop a comment down below and let me know which one of these you find yourself doing and which one of these tools that you're going to try. And if this is something that you need more help with, drop a comment below or send me a DM, and I will take you through a system to be able to walk you through how to start figuring this out for yourself. Like I said, I did it for me. I got myself out of some of the darkest times of my life, someone who was completely incompetent and couldn't do anything, to a therapist who sees, hundreds of people a month, a speaker, a podcaster, and a leader. So if I could do it for me, you 10 out of 10 can do it for you.